Hey folks, this is Russell Longcore of dumpdc.com. At dumpdc.com, we show the world that secession is the only logical conclusion for individual liberty and property rights here in North America. And we've just gotten through the Memorial Day weekend, and I posted an article at www.dumpdc.com. The article is entitled Memorial Day 2013, how about a new meaning? And this has gotten, I mean, it's just gone viral. I've gotten thousands and thousands and thousands of hits on this article this weekend. So this will go to, I mean, this will stay up forever, and that's great. And I'm really delighted that it had such an impact around the United States. But there are going to be some people that won't see it because they're looking for videos instead of something written on a blog. So I thought today that it would be a good idea if I just read the article and then post it on YouTube, or and that'll get more people understanding about this and understanding the real meaning of Memorial Day. So if you'll indulge me, please, I'm going to read this article for you. So that you can, so that you folks that are watching this now will be able to also enjoy the challenge that I'm giving to you about giving a new meaning to Memorial Day going forward. Certainly this one that we've just gone through, but the next one's coming up, and I would like you very much, it would be my dream to have you look at Memorial Day completely differently. So let's look at this article, and you'll see me reading this because I'm going to read this off a screen, and I'll continue to engage with you visually between the sentences and between the paragraphs. So here we go. Now, I originally wrote this article for Memorial Day 2009, and I've updated it since then. But the updates are even more true today, and here we go. The Memorial Day 2013 weekend is upon us, and many will use this weekend as the first short vacation of summer. Picnics, boating, traveling, family gatherings, and dedication to enjoyable activities are the rule this weekend. But Memorial Day is meant to honor the men and women who died in military service to the United States of America. Formerly known as Decoration Day, it was first established in 1868. Actually, it goes back to even 1862. In Savannah was the first recorded incidents of anyone laying wreaths at the war dead. But it was first established in 62 to decorate the graves of the Civil War, or what I call the War of Northern Aggression, those people that were dead. When I was a child in the 50s and the 60s, Memorial Day was still called Decoration Day. Now, this weekend there will be memorial services and parades across America in town squares, churches, and at cemeteries. Flowers will be strewn and American flags will be unfurled in grand display. Politicians will walk the route, and military veterans will don old uniforms and walk with them. 21-gun salutes and taps will echo among the headstones. Impassioned speeches will be delivered to patriotic crowds on the goodness of America and the honor and bravery of fallen soldiers and sailors. And Americans will be remembering all the wrong things. How about a Memorial Day reality check? Those who fought and died, over 364,000, in Lincoln's army died invading another sovereign nation, the Confederate States of America. The CSA, who lost over 139,000 soldiers, was defending itself from the aggression of a foreign nation to their north. It would have been no different morally if the Northern Army would have invaded Canada. Northern mourners should remember the shame of the North, not just that their loved ones died in battle. And Southerners should forever laud their sons who died valiantly in an attempt to thwart foreign invasion and protect their homeland. Now, just as an aside, looks to me like the Southern boys were much better shots, much better marksmen than the Yankees, since the numbers above show that the South had a nearly 3-to-1 advantage in killing Yankees. But I digress. Let's move on. The 3,500 plus military personnel who fought and died in the Spanish-American War of 1898 died invading Cuba and the Philippines against Spain. Now, the last time I checked, neither country was a State of the Union and did not require defense from a foreign aggressor. The war was perpetrated by the McKinley administration and an expansionist Congress, assisted by Theodore Roosevelt and fomented by propaganda by the Hearst newspapers. The American dead of World War II, which happened 1914 to 1918, numbered over 116,000. Those people that are dead, fighting a war between the European nations that are ruled by royal cousins. America had absolutely no business being involved, but as George Washington predicted, our treaty obligations dragged us into war. World War II, 1941 to 1945, devoured over 407,000 American military personnel. President Franklin D. Roosevelt baited the Japanese into attacking us, and after they did, Congress, in its last constitutional act of war, actually declared war. FDR was itching to get into the war and got his way. Once again, treaties and war-hungry politicians cost this nation its sons and daughters, and FDR's slobbering, quisling favoritism toward Stalin helped create the USSR. The police action in Korea in 1950 through 1953, started by the United Nations, cost America over 54,000 military deaths. A ceasefire was negotiated in 1953, the year I was born, which continues to this day, 59 years later. No constitutionally declared war, no defense of American borders. Now, the Vietnam War, which was 1958 to 1975, cost over 58,000 American lives. No declared war, no Viet Cong in American streets started trying to take over our nation. Finally, some Americans actually protest the war. The U.S. military gets its ass whooped and runs for home. In April of 1980, President Jimmy Carter sent a strike force into Iran to rescue the 52 American hostages held by Iran since the 4th of November 1979. The mission was a complete cluster fornication, and 8 men died. In 1983, President Ronald Reagan sent 1,200 troops into Lebanon as peacekeepers. In a bombing incident, 220 Marines and 9 other servicemen were killed, and they are now resting in peace. No constitutionally declared war, no constitutional justification whatsoever. In April of 1986, President Ronald Reagan ordered airstrikes in Libya against President Muammar Gaddafi. Gaddafi lived, but 2 American airmen died. The invasion of Grenada in 1983 cost 19 American lives. 10,000 American troops joined forces with about 300 terrifying shock troops from Caribbean islands like Antigua, St. Kitts, Dominica, and St. Lucia to liberate Grenada, or Grenada, however they pronounce it. Yes, that last sentence was sarcasm. The struggle led to to being deposed, and the execution of Grenada's Prime Minister Maurice Bishop. Anyone find a declaration of war or reason for America's involvement? Anyone? Anyone? On May 12th, 1987, the frigate USS Stark was attacked by an Iraqi missile while in the Persian Gulf. 35 sailors died in that blast. Now, the Persian Gulf is not the territorial waters of the United States, is it? Panama was invaded by U.S. military forces on December 20th, 1989, under the order of President George H.W. Bush. 24 American military personnel died in the invasion. Bush said that protecting the 35,000 Americans living in Panama was cause for the invasion, as well as, quote, defending democracy and human rights, end quote, in Panama. General Manuel Noriega was captured and tried on drug charges, ending up in a Miami prison. It's amazing that the president of some other company or some other country can end up in a Miami prison when he's not one of our people and had to be extradited. But I digress. Excuse me. Gulf War One, 1990 and 91. Cost another 378 deaths as the U.S. protects its oil interest in Kuwait and Saudi Arabia. None of the other neighbors of Iraq consider this worthy of a fight without the arm twisting of President George H.W. Bush, especially since Kuwait formerly belonged to Iraq. Our Congress passed, quote, resolutions, end quote, subordinating their constitutional authority to declare war to Bush, and he took it seriously. Still, no defense of America was involved here. The Bosnian War in 1992 through 95 was prosecuted by Bill Clinton in conjunction with the United Nations. He sent over 20,000 troops to Bosnia, and there were no official American deaths. So still, where's the declaration of war? Why were our troops deployed outside the United States? Were the Serbs attacking Cleveland? In 1993, American military personnel were in Somalia, where the Battle of Mogadishu cost 18 dead and 73 wounded. George H.W. Bush got some wild-ass idea just before he was leaving office that the Somali Civil War was America's business, and Bush's troops got their asses handed to them by a bunch of kids with AK-47s. In September of 1994, Bill Clinton sent U.S. troops into Haiti to restore the regime of ousted President Jean-Bertrand Aristide. That cost 4 American lives. The USS Cole was docked at the port of Aden in Yemen on 12 October 2000 when it was attacked by suicide bombers. 17 sailors died in that incident. The Gulf of Aden is not part of the territorial waters of the United States, is it? The war in Iraq and Afghanistan, 2001 to the present, was started on a web of lies by President George W. Bush and his minions. It continues bolstered by more lies. Once again, no constitutional declaration of war, no honorable reason for our military to be in either country has ever been found. And now the current president, who vowed to end the war in his first presidential campaign, has kept it going and added drone strikes into Pakistan. The current president also now has an official assassination list that he uses regularly, killing both foreigners and American citizens who he doesn't like. Did you hear what I say? He kills American citizens on his assassinations list. So far, over 6,648 military personnel have been killed, and far in excess of 50,000 have been wounded. The totals are actually much higher since the Defense Department does not count combat deaths that occur after a wounded soldier leaves Iraq or Afghanistan, or the hundreds of suicides of both active duty and veteran personnel. They also do not count the deaths of the so-called military contractors, the huge army of mercenaries that Washington has hired to do its dirty business. Nobody's placing flags and wreaths on the graves of the mercs on Memorial Day. I may have missed some obscure deployment of troops in that little history lesson, but I think the message rings loud and clear. And in case you've missed the overwhelming ringing sound, here's what it means. Except for the Congressional Declaration of War in 1941, which started our involvement in World War II, no other military action since the CSA Defense of 1861 has been a lawful use of military force. And when you consider that America had no business fighting in World War II, our involvement should be considered immoral. So over 1 million, if you count up all these deaths, over 1,147,000 American sons and daughters have fought and died in military actions that should be considered both immoral and unlawful. Now, please don't misunderstand me here. I am not suggesting for a moment that the surviving families of dead military personnel should not mourn the loss of their sons and daughters. Surely, the loss of a child, husband, father, mother, friend, or loved one should be mourned. I'm not diminishing the courage, bravery, sacrifice, or valor of the dead. I do not minimize their love of country, their love of liberty, or their sense of duty. But what I am saying is this, that the reasons that they died do not stand scrutiny. The reasons they were deployed outside our shores were illegitimate and found in lies. The reasons for all military actions, save the defensive actions of the Confederate States of America, were in fact illegal, immoral, and unlawful. The dead and maimed were deceived into military service where politicians used their feelings of patriotism and trust as weapons against them and their bodies as cannon fodder. Now, I do not hold the dead entirely at fault. Did they not come from our own homes, churches, and schools where this false sense of patriotism was taught from the cradle onward? We who are alive and remain are the ones most guilty. We did not teach our children how to discern truth from lies. We failed to teach them to question all authority. We neglected to infuse them with a love of liberty, individual liberty, and a love for the rule of law. Instead, our nation is sick with jingoism and rancid nationalism. Therefore, here in the Memorial Day of 2013, may we at long last accept the tragic truth that more than 1 million of our children gave their lives as sacrificial lambs on the blood-soaked altar of the God of the state? May we finally accept that the additional hundreds of thousands were maimed and disabled on that same altar? And what of the thousands who have killed themselves after serving the state? Did they end their lives because they were so proud of their deeds? Truly, they did not die to protect the American homeland. They did not die to protect our freedoms. They did not die defending the Constitution of the United States from all enemies, foreign and domestic. Those are words that are found in their own oaths of service. No, my friends, all of those that died in military service died in vain. They died for nothing. This is what we should mourn this weekend. And as an aside to close, let me just suggest something to you. If you are at a public gathering this weekend and you see someone who is a wounded warrior, walk up to that person kindly and ask him specifically, him or her, what exactly did you lose those limbs for? And then listen. That ends this. This is presented by Dump DC. 6 letters that will change history. And permission to reprint or repost this video in whole or in part is gladly granted, providing full credit is given. Thanks, folks. Bye-bye.